Howdy guys, and welcome to night 39 of Big Brother Season 24's overnight feed recaps, and welcome to Cliff Notes. A good Sunday morning to y'all. Alright, yesterday we had the veto competition. It's going to have such a huge impact on what happens going forward, so we're going to talk about that obviously. But first of all, as a little bit of a refresher, remember that Taylor had won HOH. Her original nominees on Friday were Terrence and Indy. And at least at one point, the plan was to go ahead and send Terrence out the door. How plans change. Could that still happen? Perhaps. But it seems like maybe that's not necessarily the top goal right now. So let's get right into it. First of all, the veto competition. We had Taylor as HOH, Indy and Terrence as nominees, all three competing. But we had just a standard old pick three more people to compete in the veto. Taylor, I think, is the one who got house guest choice. And she picked Alyssa. Now keep that in mind. We'll talk about that in a second. She picked Alyssa to compete. We also had Kyle and Jasmine getting to compete as well. And the winner of this veto competition was Kyle. Kyle has won the veto. The big question at this point in time, is he going to use it? Is he not going to use it? Who wants him to? Who doesn't? A lot of conversations last night revolving around that. Now, the veto competition itself, one of my favorites. I don't know what you got. The trade up prizes, punishments, I don't know. In this case, it was a situation where it sounds like they were having to roll balls into target zones. Everyone rolls a ball. Lowest score every round is eliminated. They pick an envelope, a box, and it has either a prize or a punishment. When the next person's eliminated, they can either keep their prize or punishment or take one of the others that's already out there. Until the very end, everyone ends up with punishment, prize, or a veto. It's always a lot of fun seeing who's comfortable enough in the game that they're going to pick the prize over the veto competition. And it seems like we had a lot of those yesterday. So, who won what? Well, first of all, Kyle traded at the very end and got the veto. I think he was the very last one left, traded and got the veto. So congrats to him. Jasmine got a trip to London, and we're going to talk about that. Alyssa got $5,000 in hard cash. Good job, Alyssa. Pretty good. But none of this stuff comes without repercussions, which we will talk about. So those are the prizes. Indy got some kind of a punk-tard costume. She got it last night. It's a pink, black thing with like a fake pink mohawk, and she has to, whenever called, go put on a concert. There's a little setup in the living room, drums and everything, that she has to do some kind of performance. I don't think we ever got to see that last night. I never actually saw a performance. I'm sure they're saving that for the actual episode. But she got a punishment. Terrence got another punishment. He has to get 182 temporary tattoos. Ink 182. Get it? Yeah, even I got it. So Terrence's Ink 182 tattoos. And who else am I leaving out? I think that's it. Oh, and then the big one perhaps. Taylor has a punishment. Taylor is chained to someone for the next 48 hours. And apparently she got to pick who it was, and she picked Joseph. Imagine that. Yeah. So she picked Joseph. So she and Joseph are going to be locked together for the next 48 hours as well. So there you have it. That's who won what. But there's a little bit of controversy and scandal going along with it, as we'll talk about. Now, first of all, let's talk about the fact that Alyssa, originally, I think she got the chained up punishment. She traded with Taylor, so that Taylor ended up with that punishment. And Alyssa at that point in time then got the trip to London. Well, then later, Jasmine traded Alyssa to get to London, so Alyssa didn't end up with it, but she traded the HOH, gave her a punishment, which didn't sit well with Taylor, and it may not be sitting well with Alyssa by the time we're all done with this, because her name is now coming up as a little bit. All right, so with that being said, and then the other thing, again, as I mentioned, Alyssa took the trip, but again, the veto wasn't out there yet, so I kind of understand that. Jasmine traded the veto for the trip. Apparently, Jasmine is feeling very comfortable about her position in the house. I guess being birthday week, you just figure you're safe from everything. Taylor had already told her she was safe, so with that in mind, why does Jasmine need the veto, right? So instead, she got the trip at the end of the day, going to London. That'll be interesting. All right, so let's talk about the live feeds themselves, what went on, because there was a lot of talking taking place. Right after we get the feeds back, we've got Indy confirming to Michael that I think it's Michael, confirming that the plan is still to pull her off the block. He's saying, yeah, you're good. We'll put you off. You were just a pawn up there, Indy. Don't worry about it. But later, he's talking to Joseph and Brittany about using it on Terrence instead. I've got Michael. For some reason, I'm thinking that may have been Kyle. So we'll see. But anyway, Indy thinks that the veto is going to be used to save her. Maybe not. Maybe things change in the span of just a few hours. Jasmine is talking about her trip. She's saying that she didn't realize that London isn't in the United States. It's on the other side of the ocean. Really? Is that truly the case, or is Jasmine just playing up her down-home country roots? I don't know anything that's going on. It's got to be the latter, right? I hope it's the latter. I don't know. She didn't know that London wasn't part of the United States. She asked if it's a weekend trip or a full week trip, and someone said, it takes 13 hours to get there, so I think you'll be there probably for a week. She's saying that while she's in London, she wants to also see Paris and London as well. So I don't know if it's geographical issues that Jasmine has, or she's just playing her little persona. Perhaps a little bit of both. Now, here's the thing I'll say about that. If you win a prize on that competition, don't be going around the house and talking about it. Get quiet about it, because some people are going to hold that against you. And the more you talk about it, the more it's going to irritate everyone, but especially the ones who didn't get to compete, who didn't get a prize, and who are just sitting there simmering and stewing a little bit about the fact that you got all the stuff and they didn't. So you got to be quiet about that kind of stuff. All right, we've got another conversation. Joseph and Taylor are talking. Joseph is mentioning the fact that he has a supposed final two with Jasmine, and that Jasmine also has a final two with Alyssa. So remember, Taylor was saying, I'm not voting out Jasmine this week. It's her birthday, and she's a black woman. Those two things combined, I'm just not voting out Jasmine. Well, Joseph's kind of throwing out some ideas about, maybe you ought to reconsider here, Taylor. Taylor is saying, talking about claiming prizes and everything, and she's saying, look, I would have put Jasmine on the block if Jasmine had taken the trip from her. Remember, it wasn't Jasmine, it was Alyssa who took it, and then Jasmine later took it from Alyssa. But she said, I would have put her on the block if that was the case. Mondi says, look, you wouldn't have kept the trip anyway. Whether Alyssa took it or not, Jasmine would have, so it doesn't really matter that much. But Taylor's hot. In fact, Taylor and Monty are both really upset with Alyssa that she didn't respect the HOH more. In fact, at one point, Taylor says, I gave her safety, and she repays it by taking the trip from me. She just disrespected the HOH. It's not even that. Taylor picked Alyssa as house guest choice to compete in this competition, and Alyssa still took the trip from her. Now, the idea about promising safety, well, that was a mistake. Maybe you don't promise safety to anyone until you get past the veto ceremony. In fact, there's a lot of things with Taylor's HOH this week that just make me think back to Frenchie back in season 23, the first week, where he seemed to promise safety to everyone. I feel like Taylor's promised safety to a few too many people. It backfired on her in this situation because Alyssa and Jasmine both feel like they're completely safe. So why not go for the prizes and everything else? And so that's what's happened. So she's a little upset about that. If I'm Taylor, it's bothering me less about promising safety and more that I'm the one that picked you to compete. Maybe you should have kept that in mind a little bit. But if I recall reading the order of these things finishing, Alyssa didn't have a lot of choices. If she was going to not get stuck with being chained up, the only prize that was already out there was a trip. So I don't really hold it against her, but Taylor certainly is. All right, conversation. Now here's, before we move on, the fact that Taylor's saying that based on someone taking a prize from her, she would maybe consider putting them on the block because of that, that tells me one thing. That tells me that Taylor isn't necessarily making her choices this week based on what is most strategic, but is maybe letting a little emotion creep into her gameplay at this point in time. And I understand it. I absolutely understand it. But in terms of advancing this game and making sure you're there at the final two. At that point, you got to play this thing strategically. And maybe she's letting little emotions creep into it. All right, moving on. We've got Brittany and Kyle talking. All right. Brittany and Kyle had a lot of, Brittany and Kyle had some conversations. Brittany and Michael had a lot of conversations. This one's Brittany and Kyle. They're complaining about Brittany not even faking a smile after Kyle won veto. Again, she's feeling pretty safe. Not Brittany, complaining about Jasmine. It was a long night. Complaining about Jasmine not even faking a smile when Kyle won veto, how secure she feels. Kyle's wondering if she thinks that no one's going to go after her because of her ankle injury. Well, yeah, that's exactly what she thinks. And saying that Jasmine, at least in her own eyes, Jasmine thinks that she has a great social game going on, so she's feeling pretty insulated at this point in time. Earlier, we also had Joseph and Turner complaining about Jasmine, saying that she just continues to demand things. She wants special things. I heard Jasmine talking about her birthday, saying, here's the kind of cakes I want. If I don't get one of those kind of cakes, I don't want anything at all. But I'm not picky, was how she followed up. So yeah, there's certainly people noticing that. Michael was complaining about how Jasmine just continues to get lucky in the way some things have gone, and that she's maybe not deserving of where she is in the game right now. So the theme of it, a lot of people that are continuing to get a little fed up with Jasmine and some of the things that she's doing in the house and some of the behaviors and characteristics, it's catching up to her. I know that Taylor's not doing anything this week, supposedly, but that doesn't mean that whoever gets this next HOH down the road isn't going to be targeting Jasmine. I fully expect Jasmine's probably going to be the second person in the jury house. Of course, with this new twist, who knows? Everything could change completely. All right, and I'll say this. Let my own emotions come into play, because I'm not playing the game of Big Brother this season. I kind of would love to see Terrence get pulled off the block and Jasmine put on the block. Even if the plan is to send Indy out or whatever, I'd love to see Jasmine on the block just to watch her panic a little bit and just maybe get a little less comfortable about her position in the game, because she's way too comfortable. All right, we've got Monty and Taylor and Brittany talking. They are very upset with Alyssa again. Apparently, Taylor had told Alyssa, it's back the same thing, taking the trip from her after she said she was safe and everything, and disrespecting the HOH. All right, we got Brittany talking about Kyle using the veto, and Taylor, this is a suggestion from Brittany, saying, look, what if Kyle uses a veto and Taylor puts up Alyssa in place of Terrence? At that point in time, Brittany's thinking that Jasmine's going to support Alyssa over Indy. They send Alyssa home out the door, and now you've got Jasmine and Indy going crazy, maybe going after each other because they didn't support each other, that you could really screw up that side of the house. So this is something that Brittany is suggesting. I don't know if it'll go anywhere or not, but lots of scenarios thrown out last night. All right, we've got Indy telling Brittany and Michael that Taylor has again confirmed that the plan is to pull Indy off the block. Of course, now she's got to count on Kyle to use a veto, or else that's not going to happen. And there's some real uncertainty to that. All right, Brittany and Michael talking. Brittany and Michael had a lot of conversations last night, and it's tough to report on because they go through every possible scenario about final threes, final fours. Could we do this? Could we do that? I'd be sitting here for the next hour going over their conversation. So I'm trying to fine tune it to the stuff that I think is most relevant, because they talked for a long time, which as a viewer, I love watching, trying to recap in a short period of time. Not so easy to do sometimes. All right, so the key points of the Brittany-Michael conversations. Brittany doesn't want to go to any of to the final three with any of the leftovers. She would prefer to bring someone from outside the leftovers as a final three with her and Michael. Both of them have talked about the fact they'd love to have Terrence as the final member of a final three with them. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, you're right. You don't think he's going to be winning a whole lot of jury votes, do you? But they're both saying, yeah, I'd love to take Terrence to the final three, but I wouldn't take him to the final two. I'm taking you. And Brittany and Michael Leone say, yeah, and I'd take you too. Well, that's a whole Cody, Derek, Victoria kind of scenario. If you take the weakest person with you to the final three, do you stay loyal to your ride or die? Or do you go for someone that you know you can win against? I think Brittany and Michael are tight. I think there's a chance they really would take each other out of respect for each other. But $750,000 is a lot of money to be taking a risk on as well. So they're saying, yeah, I'd love to take Terrence, but not sure, and I certainly wouldn't take the final 2, but love to have him at final 3. But they are worried that a lot of other people in this house may want to take Terrence to final 2, which means if they're taking him to final 2, they're not taking Brittany or Michael. So it's that balance right now. Here's the thing with Terrence. He's right on this edge where if he survives another week or 2, people start looking at him as an easy drag along to the end. He's not a threat. I could use him at the end. Terrence could go a long way without doing anything else the rest of this game. We'll see if it happens or not. All right, both of them are talking about Taylor as a final 3 member with the 2 of them, but they're both thinking it's too risky. She's too good at competitions. She could too easily get the majority of the jury votes. So as much as they're working with Taylor right now as a group of 3, they're both very nervous about having to sit next to her in a final 2 chair. All right, we got that. They're also wondering if how they start turning on the leftovers. Again, it's coming quickly. And they're wondering if maybe during the double eviction, if that would be a good time to take the shot on the leftovers. Well, sounds like from what we're hearing with the twist, this double eviction may not be as easy as it sounds because of the house being split and all of that. So it may not be an issue anyway. We've got some other conversations between them. Michael is okay with taking out Monty. They see Monty as a target. He's saying, I'm fine with doing that as long as we can get Kyle on board. We just need to make sure it's not just the 2 of us by ourselves. If we get Kyle on board, then I feel a bit more comfortable going after Monty. They're also talking about a final 4 with Taylor and Joseph. They just got through saying I don't want Taylor in a final 3, but maybe they'd be okay with Joseph and Taylor as a final 4. I think they're just thinking that the 2 of them maybe would give them the best chance to get to a final 4. That'd be a strong group of 4. I absolutely believe that. I think it really would hurt Brittany and Michael's chances, though, of making it from final 4 to final 2. And you always have to be thinking about that, right? All right, and then finally, well, not finally, because there are a few more things. They're saying that they still don't know what Taylor's plans are this week. They don't know who she's going to put up if the veto is used. They still have to figure that out. Brittany, some more concerns. Brittany is talking about Taylor and Joseph, and she's worried that Taylor and Joseph could beat Brittany and Michael. But they want them for a final 4. They got to hash some things out here. Brittany is also talking about this whole Alyssa situation. People are mad at her and all that, but they're also worried about how that's affecting their alliance with Kyle, with the leftovers and everything else. Brittany is thinking that if they were to get Alyssa out the door, remember that, suddenly talk about sending Alyssa out. Brittany's wondering if they get Alyssa out, would Kyle work closer to the 2 of them just out of necessity, because he has no one else to turn to necessarily. Now, he's part of the pound, but would he work closer with Brittany and Michael? I could kind of see that. I could. So maybe there's some advantage to go ahead and getting Alyssa out the door. As far as pecking order or eviction order, Brittany is saying she'd really like to get out Monty first, then Turner or Kyle, and then the other one, which would lead to the final 4 that we've talked about. Michael is saying that he's really okay if they send out Alyssa this week, send out Jasmine next week, and then after that, they make their big move. At Final 9, they make their big move. They turn on the leftovers and let the chaos reign. Again, this twist is going to change up all these scenarios at this point in time. All right, Kyle comes in, starts talking to him. Kyle's worried about Alyssa's jealousy. Apparently when Taylor won, HOH fell off the wall. Kyle gave Taylor a hug. Alyssa immediately said, all right, that's enough. She felt like he hugged him a little too long, hugged Taylor a little bit too long, that she's following him around everywhere. He says, is this affecting me in the leftovers? Brittany says, well, no, not really. We know you're loyal and all that. It just makes it hard to talk game with you because Alyssa is always there with you. And he says, yeah, I can't ever get away from her. I come up here to talk to you, she comes right behind me, or she's up in the room and I have to leave in order to get her to leave so I know y'all can talk. He says it's really kind of tough. So Kyle's actually throwing out there the idea about maybe it's time for Alyssa to go. As much as I like this showmance, he says at one point, yeah, it's just so boring in the house. That's never a good start to a relationship of, yeah, we just kind of hooked up because, I was bored, whatever. So he's saying, yeah, maybe next week it's time to get her out. But then he turns around and says, Yeah, but here's the thing. Alyssa's not really a threat. She would go after Monty if she won HOH in the house. And she has said that she wants to work with you, Brittany and Michael. So, yeah, I'd love to see her out next week, but maybe there's a lot of reasons that maybe she shouldn't be sent out. So Kyle's waffling both directions. I think he wants everyone to know that he's willing to send her out without actually wanting to send her out, is my personal opinion. All right, he does mention that he's not really feeling comfortable about using the veto if he knows that Alyssa's going to get backdoored. He just feels a little disloyal doing that. There's some real indecision. I really think Kyle does not want to use this veto this week. He's perfectly happy keeping Terrence and Indy on the block with the idea of Indy going home. Alyssa's protected. I think that's what he wants to do. But there's a lot of people who are going to be pressuring him to do something else. He also mentions that Taylor is okay getting Indy out this week, he thinks, if they go that direction. All right, we've got Kyle also saying that Joseph, and I agree with this, he's saying that he thinks Joseph is a way better game player than Monty or Taylor with both his game talk, the way he communicates with other people, that he's tighter with Jasmine and Alyssa. So Kyle's much more worried about Joseph than he is Monty or Taylor, and I agree with that. Brittany is a little bit worried about the closeness of Taylor and Joseph, and she's saying, look, Taylor had the choice. She could have picked anyone to be chained up to for the next 48 hours. She could have picked me, but she didn't. She picked Joseph, and that worries me a little bit, that they're getting closer and closer as they hang out together. Michael is talking. The talk has kind of turned to Joseph, away from Alyssa to Joseph. Michael's complaining that Joseph has been throwing all these competitions in order to avoid getting any blood on his hands, to stay tight with the girls, and it's all true. And he's wondering at this point, he's saying, what value is Joseph bringing to the leftovers? Yeah, when the other side was strong and we weren't sure what they were doing, he was great to get information. But now we've got the other side so outnumbered, we can do what we want. So what is Joseph doing here other than just keeping his hands clean while we all do the dirty work? So, Joseph's getting a little heat directed his way as well. All right, Kyle mentioning a final five of himself, Alyssa, Turner, Brittany, and Michael. Brittany and Michael are just brought up in a whole lot of different final five, final four alliances, aren't they? All right, he's saying that Joseph is the one who's been planting seeds about Alyssa, that Alyssa really is not a mastermind. Joseph's making it sound like that because Joseph wants Alyssa out. But Kyle's saying she's not a mastermind. She told me everything. The only reason we formed the leftovers is because Alyssa spilled the beans on everything. She's not the mastermind. It's Jasmine, and it's just Joseph spreading seeds, and that's true. Brittany is saying that if Jasmine does go, that Alyssa will have to turn to this group, Brittany and Michael and Kyle, going forward. So again, she wants Jasmine gone. Don't think it's going to happen this week, but that's what she's wanting. Brittany is saying that Monty and Taylor won't take out Jasmine or Terrence, so it's going to have to be Brittany or Michael or Kyle that does the dirty work and sends those two out the door. All right, there's a little bit of talk about Joseph's real job. Alyssa apparently thinks that he's some kind of super scientist. It's mentioned that Amira was thinking that maybe Joseph was some kind of an attorney. Ding, 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 ding. Surprised they'd have two personal trainers in a season. I could see that. But she suspects he's an attorney, and now Michael is on the hunt as well. Something about Joseph had said he turned down a job as a legal analyst, and Michael's saying, that didn't just fall into your lap. You got to have some legal background to do that, and so Joseph's secret may be leaking out, and normally you wonder back and forth. Xavier was able to carry it for quite a while. With Michael being an attorney also, I'm not sure it's going to be that easy for Joseph to pull off going forward. All right, but here's the thing. If Michael says too much about it, it may indicate that he knows a lot as well, and who may point the finger back at him also. All right, Kyle says that once the girls see that Kyle's not using the veto, assuming he doesn't use a veto, he said, look, if I don't use a veto and Indy is staying on the block, they're going to start distancing themselves from Alyssa. Or Alyssa's going to start distancing herself from them, and that's going to work to our advantage. So they're thinking about what's going to happen. It's going to be a blow-up if Indy stays on the block. Brittany is saying that they really need to get some of the other side, the non-leftover lines, out of the door, because she's just worried that Monty and Joseph are tighter with them than they are, and they don't want Monty and Joseph to be able to build up their numbers. Joseph, yes. I don't know why she thinks Monty would be tight with the girls, as much as they've all been mentioning his name going forward. But she's saying we got to focus on the other side at least for a few more weeks before we start turning in and going after our own. All right. They're worried that if Terrence was to win an HOH, that he would probably put up Michael and Monty if he was to win it. And Kyle's saying, yeah, well, he maybe would, but if he was to do that, we've got enough votes to save you, Michael. You'd be all right. It'd be Monty that went home at this point in time. And I think that's probably true. Although I don't know how the pound would operate as well, how they would respond. All right, we're going to finish this up real quick. We had probably an hour and a half, 2 hour long conversation, again, about how to survive a zombie apocalypse. Conversation I'd love to have. I can talk 4 or 5 hours on that. I'm prepared. I'm prepared. But they're having the conversation. Michael is still settled on going up to Minnesota where all the zombies freeze. Turner's focused on being on a boat, circling around, arguing about how do you get food on the boat and how do you get food when it's freezing up. So a long conversation. It had absolutely nothing to do with gameplay. All right, and then finally, we've got Taylor out of the DR. I don't know how long this DR was. She said something, it was long, but she was off cameras for a long period of time. So just as everyone else is getting ready to go to bed, Taylor's up out of the house, diary room, and ready to hang out and everything. But she does say to Michael and Joseph as she's coming out of the diary room that there's a lot happening and that the season is going very well. Taylor's just so focused on making sure this isn't a boring season and that everything's going well. And I just wonder if Big Brother might have whispered to her something, I don't know, implied that everyone's loving what's going on in the house or something. They must have said something for her to come out so excited. Maybe it's just the questions they ask her. I don't know, but she seems to be very excited about the way the season is going so far and the reception that probably is happening in the outside world with it as well. So she talks about that a little bit. We've got a final little conversation. Taylor and Turner and Michael are talking. They're thinking that Kyle will probably use a veto. I think Taylor says something about he's not going to want to do it. He's going to do it begrudgingly, but I think he'll use a veto because if he doesn't, it's only going to get worse later. This is where he's going to have the least amount of blood on his hands. And I think what she's referring to is getting Alyssa out the door. So she's saying if Kyle uses a veto now, yeah, we send the showmats home, but it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get tougher for him on down the road. Maybe, but that's a tough call, isn't it? But it's sounding now like Taylor really has flipped in terms of what she wants to do. That probably it is a matter of not sending home Terrence, not sending home Indy, but using the veto and sending Alyssa out the door instead. Not sure Brittany and I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. It's really going to be a little bit of a ongoing discussion until Monday, and then we'll find out what happens. I love it. I love the indecision, see how it's going to work, see who can pitch their campaigns the best. So we will find out. I'd love to say we'll find out tomorrow, but it may not be till Tuesday morning's recaps before we know. Finally, we had a conversation, pretty long conversation between Taylor and Joseph out in the backyard in a hammock. I'm not sure there was a lot of gameplay going on, so we'll just leave it at that. The main thing is, will Kyle use the veto or won't he? And if he does, who's going up in place? I think it's one of two things. I think he either does not use it and Indy goes home as our first juror, or he does use it, Alyssa goes up, Alyssa goes home. Now, if Indy goes home, that means Indy goes home while she's wearing her pink punkatard costume and everything else, because I always want you to wear those if you're getting evicted that week. So that'll be an interesting Thursday night. And then we'll have everything else with this twist happening. It's going to be a fun week. Guys, we're going to call it right there. It's been an interesting 24 hours. I'm sure it's going to keep up for the next 24, 48 as well. Y'all have a fantastic rest of your weekend. I will be back tomorrow morning to give you a new overnight feeds recap. Until then, SKD143. Cheers, my friends.